quero saudar a Sra. Cônsul, que também nos dá o prazer, eu tive a honra também de conhecer e de reconhecer o vasto trabalho que tem para realizar em todos os Estados aqui. Portanto, a partir da sua ação, é o elo de ligação entre a comunidade portuguesa nestas paragens aqui, na América, nesta zona, e ao mesmo tempo também a nossa nacionalidade portuguesa. Há uma presença nacional dentro deste território. Naturalmente que quero saudar todos açorianos e naturalmente também os outros que não sejam açorianos, mas estão aqui. Eu sei que há vários que estão por afinidade, uns por casamento, outros por amizade. Eu quero saudar a todos. Permitam-me assim uma saudação a todos aqueles. Eu gostaria também de dar uma saudação a todos aqueles que prepararam esta festa, na qual eu me sinto também implicado, porque criaram as condições para eu estar aqui presente. E eu lembro que aqui há 3 anos, salvo erro, em Turloque, o Sr. Dr. Manuel Botencourt encontrou-me lá e queria-me trazer aqui a São José. Disse: o senhor também tem que ir a São José. E eu disse: eu estou ao dispor das pessoas de Turloque. Então, mas disse assim: mas a todo momento tenho muito gosto a ir a São José. E foi nessa altura que ele disse logo: em 2019 fazemos ou celebramos o centenário da Igreja das Cinco Chagas. Eu disse: então, depois lembrem-me, nessa altura, aí antecipadamente, que eu tenho muito gosto de estar. E é verdade, eu não só tenho gosto, como tenho obrigação. Eu sinto como obrigação, como bispo dos Açores, de estar onde estão as comunidades portuguesas, açorianas, nas várias paragens. Eu já estive em Turloque, foi logo a primeira onde estive, já estive em Providence, já estive em Fall River, já estive no Canadá, em Toronto, e agora estou aqui convosco. Portanto, mais ou menos em cada ano, e às vezes mais uma vez por ano, eu quero estar, é meu dever estar convosco. Como é meu dever também, e vós certamente já o ouvistes e já vistes, porque temos a graça de ter comunicação social que nos faz o encontro fisicamente, muitas vezes não é possível, mas sempre nos tenho presente nas celebrações a nível dos Açores, seja na Sé Catedral ou seja noutras onde se faça a transmissão e que vós, pela rádio ou pela televisão, temos possibilidade também de estar em sintonia com a vossa terra, com a nossa terra de origem. Por isso, quero-vos dizer que esta obrigação vem do afeto que tenho por vós. Trago comigo, sendo bispo, junto com todos os sacerdotes, uma parte deles, das paróquias a que vós pertenceis por origem e certamente, inclusive, colaborastes durante muito tempo, trago estas saudações amigas, trago também a saudade normal de quem sente que muitos daqueles que estavam nas suas terras hoje estão fora e temos lá o vosso lugar. Mas também compreendemos que por uma questão de melhoria de vida encontraste aqui condições que não era fácil encontrar em território português e nomeadamente a nível dos Açores. E por isso nos sentimos também orgulhosos convosco por aquilo que vós realizais aqui. Nós vemos que em geral, todos tiveram um progresso na vida, todos tiveram possibilidades aqui de colocar as suas capacidades tão nobres e tão grandes para progredirem a nível laboral, a nível de comunidade, a nível cultural e a outros níveis. Portanto, eu quero dar esta palavra de reconhecimento e também de apoio da nossa parte a este vosso trabalho e a vossa dedicação. Mas permita-me que a mim, e agora que estamos neste contexto do centenário desta igreja, já aqui foi dito que uma igreja não é pura e simplesmente só o templo ou o edifício, é a comunidade, são as pessoas. E por isso este Monsenhor Ribeiro merece de nós um grande respeito e uma grande homenagem. Eu fui o grande obreiro, já fui ouvindo falar, escutei e sinto-me agraciado porque um padre açoriano, português, vem para aqui. E aqui ele sentiu a necessidade de criar as condições necessárias para edificar uma comunidade cristã para que, como já foi dito aqui, as vossas tradições tão ricas continuassem a ser celebradas aqui e que através destas tradições, que no fundo são expressões da religiosidade, da fé de um povo que tem o Divino Espírito Santo, que tem no Santo Cristo, ou que tem a Nossa Senhora, realmente os sustentáculos para uma vida comunitária em profundidade e numa relação que só Deus pode realmente fortalecer e que vós vivemos. O que eu diria, e também manifestando o meu apreço por aquilo que são, porque é o vosso trabalho, a vossa dedicação, para que as tradições ligadas à fé estejam sempre muito presentes e vivas. Eu quero dizer, vós já o sentis, certamente, nas vossas viagens às vossas terras de origem, aos Açores, que a sociedade portuguesa, a europeia e, naturalmente, os Açores está aí integrado, está numa mudança muito grande. Eu que vim para os Açores há 4 anos, tenho verificado e sinto como a cultura açoriana está numa transformação muito grande. Eu digo sempre que, dado que porventura preservou mais algum tempo as suas tradições e teve uma marca religiosa muito profunda, hoje parece que era aceleradamente apanhar o comboio do secularismo europeu. Isto hoje é notório, não vale a pena nós realmente ignorá-lo. Isto só quer dizer que é uma provocação a todos nós para uma evangelização mais adaptada aos tempos todos. E por isso eu vejo em vós precisamente aqueles que continuais a ter essa vida. E por isso eu vos pedia que não sejam apenas um reduto de tradições, mas que através de um conhecimento verdadeiro da profundidade das formas religiosas que constituem a vossa expressão religiosa, que vós, no contacto que tendes também com familiares, com amigos, com conterrâneos, os alerteis para esta realidade que é necessária. Eu digo sempre, não podemos ficar apenas no exteriorismo das nossas manifestações, porque isso é o primeiro passo para amanhã deixar cair a verdadeira religiosidade. É necessário ir ao conteúdo e não podemos perder o conteúdo. Quando cheguei aos Açores, a comunicação social estava muito interessada em saber o que é que este bispo ia dizer sobre a evolução do Espírito Santo, porque é algo que é muito importante, é muito sensível para vós e para todos os açorianos. E eu disse sempre, tudo aquilo que diz respeito às irmandades do Espírito Santo, eu tenho a consciência que tem um cunho de liderança dos leigos, dos batizados, leigos. Agora, são manifestações de fé. Está entroncado numa forma religiosa de viver, a partir da terceira pessoa da Santíssima Trindade, o mistério de Deus na vida da pessoa. Tem realidades extraordinárias. Mas tem também uma coisa. É necessário protegê-la daquilo que possam ser ataques e é necessário renová-la para que responda realmente aos tempos todos. E era isto que eu gostaria também de vos deixar nestas terras agora aqui da Califórnia, de São José. Congratular-me com esta festa, com aquilo que vós estáis a celebrar, todos nós estamos a celebrar aqui a partir desta igreja. Mas como eu terei a ocasião de amanhã ainda dizer na Eucaristia, celebrar é também comprometer-nos. Comprometermos em ordem ao futuro. Outros nos legaram o que nós vivemos hoje. As novas gerações serão o que nós hoje fizemos por elas. Por isso, saúde a todos, agradeço o convite de estar convosco e quero convosco também dar graças a Deus pelo nosso passado, dar graças a Deus por aquilo que somos capazes de realizar hoje e também comprometermos em ordem ao futuro, que será também aquilo que Deus fizer por nós, mas também aquilo que nós fizermos com Deus. Muito obrigado.
Boa noite, senhoras e senhores, reverendíssimo Bispo João Lavrador, Reverendíssimo Bispo Oscar Canto, Padre António Silveira. Eu vou ser muito breve, como pediram, e sobretudo porque eu gosto sempre de falar um bocadinho em português e um bocadinho em inglês, para ninguém se sentir excluído. É um prazer poder estar convosco hoje aqui para celebrar o centenário da Igreja das Cinco Chagas, a Igreja Nacional Portuguesa das Cinco Chagas, porque isto é um momento que nenhum de nós vai viver. Outra vez estivemos a fazer as contas e de facto ninguém vai estar aqui daqui a 100 anos, talvez 50 anos para os mais pequenos. Sei que a ideia maravilhosa do Monsenhor Ribeiro, que foi o precursor desta paróquia, desta igreja, da construção e tudo mais, não teria nunca sido possível sem o apoio da comunidade portuguesa. O seu sonho não se teria realizado. Os imigrantes portugueses chegaram aos Estados Unidos em busca de uma vida melhor, criaram este sistema que a mim me comove muito, que são as associações de irmandade, as fraternidades, construíram os salões que todos nós conhecemos, ajudaram a construir igrejas e mantiveram sempre a nossa cultura e as nossas tradições. Aqui no município de Santa Clara souberam apoiar, e em São José, na cidade de São José, souberam apoiar o Monsenhor Ribeiro. E é aqui, hoje em dia, que se reúnem não só os portugueses, mas os fiéis de todas as comunidades e de todas as nacionalidades. E é isso uma característica portuguesa, uma característica desta comunidade. A comunidade portuguesa da Califórnia recebe com generosidade sempre todas as pessoas, todas as comunidades, não importa quem, e tem sempre amigos. Isto é uma coisa que eu tenho notado desde que cheguei e não estou a tentar ser simpática, eu digo sempre isso, é mesmo verdade. E esta enorme generosidade desta comunidade que eu vejo aqui, que é uma coisa tão evidente, é o que me dá orgulho de ser a vossa cônsul, e é por isso, é graças a vós que eu tenho ainda mais orgulho de ser portuguesa, porque no fundo eu tenho orgulho de ser portuguesa pela tolerância que os portugueses manifestam, pela grande generosidade. Eu já estive em vários países, como sabem, e encontro sempre esta característica nos portugueses, que são respeitados pela seriedade, pela capacidade de trabalho e pela generosidade e tolerância também, que é uma característica única que me faz também muito orgulhosa de ser portuguesa. Eu queria também só, hoje vou já acabar, queria só informar-vos que hoje em Portugal, não sei se sabem, está a decorrer o primeiro Congresso Mundial da Diáspora Portuguesa. Foi hoje o primeiro dia, a inauguração, estiveram o Sr. Presidente, o Sr. Primeiro-Ministro, o Ministro, o Secretário de Estado das Comunidades, e estiveram também aqui membros da comunidade portuguesa, e o facto de termos o primeiro Congresso da comunidade da diáspora portuguesa, eu acho que é um significado que não podemos deixar de notar, e é que a diáspora é celebrada hoje em dia em Portugal como parte de uma única nação, ou seja, não é por Portugal precisar ou não dos imigrantes, é porque nós temos consciência que juntos somos uma nação e somos todos portugueses. E eu, como portuguesa do continente, e que ando a viajar, mas não sou completamente imigrante, o que eu acho é que as comunidades cá fora de Portugal, e vós todos, têm muito a ensinar a quem vive em Portugal, porque vocês viram outras realidades e têm muito a ensinar. I'll just make a very small summary for those who don't understand Portuguese, but I'll be very brief. So I'm very honored to celebrate this centennial anniversary of the 500th National Parish with you. If this was possible when Monsignor Ribeiro had his dream, this dream could only be achieved through the support of the Portuguese community, through the generosity of all the Portuguese community. This trait of the Portuguese who embrace other nationalities and who embrace other communities, who bring them into their fold. Of of course, to the parties that we all know, but also to the parish, and to share this place of worship with other people is a characteristic that I'm very proud of. That makes me proud to be Portuguese. And then I also mentioned that today we have the first, in Porto, in Portugal, we have the first conference of the Portuguese diasporas. This is the first time we're having this kind of event, and it just shows how much the diaspora means for Portugal, because we're all one nation, we're all the same people, and we have a lot to learn from you who have gone abroad and seen other worlds and succeeded here in California and here in the United States. So, bem-ajam, muito obrigada por me convidarem, desculpem se falei muito, e até à próxima, não daqui a 100 anos, mas ao próximo evento aqui em São José. Obrigada.
Earlier today during Mass, we received 2 commendations from the city of San Jose. And tonight at this event, we're really honored to receive a resolution and an additional commendation. First, we receive a resolution from the California State Assembly. I'd like to welcome Dr. Manuel Betancourt, who will present us with this resolution on behalf of the Honorable Cecilia Aguiar Curry of the 4th Assembly District and Honorable Ash Kalra of the 27th Assembly District.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm going to be very brief. This commendation or resolution has 6 pages, but I'm going to read only one, or half of one. Okay. Whereas on July 13, 2019, Reverend António Silveira and the parishioners of 5 Wounds Portuguese National Church are celebrating the centennial of the church's dedication. And whereas located in the heart of the city of São José's Little Portugal community, where it stands a testament to devout, hard-working immigrants from Portugal, 5 Wounds Portuguese National Church arose from the efforts of its founder, Monsignor Henrique Augusto Ribeiro, a lifelong spiritual leader in California Portuguese communities, and 318 Portuguese families from San Jose and surrounding cities who established the parish on November 8, 1914, and the church on July 13, 1919, exactly 100 years today. Whereas today, 5 Wounds Church rises above East San Jose as an officially designated City of San Jose historical landmark and much loved place of worship that holds profound importance as the spiritual home of multi-ethnic and multicultural family of parishioners whose community involvement supports persons who are poor, homeless, hungry, and otherwise in need of assistance. And whereas since the founding, 5 Wounds Portuguese National Church has maintained a laudable and far-reaching tradition of community service and engagement, and through the century-long involvement in civic and charitable affairs, it has improved the quality of life and enhanced the well-being of generations of Californians. Now therefore be it resolved by Assembly members Cecilia Aguiar Curry of Sacramento and Ash Kalra of San Jose, that they congratulate 5 Wounds Portuguese National Church on the occasion of its centennial, commend the church and the spiritual leaders and parishioners for their myriad invaluable contributions to people of the city of San Jose and the wider Santa Clara County community, and convey their best wishes for the church's future growth and vitality. Dated this 13th day of July 2018, signed Honorable Cecilia Giarturi and Honorable Aish Cabra. Thank you.
And now we'd like to call to the stage David Cortese. David serves on the California Board of Supervisors representing this district, and he will present the Five Wounds Portuguese National Church with a commendation.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm not even going to read one page, but I appreciate it very much hearing Manu read that state resolution, because it's very important, especially coming from a Portuguese-American member of the California legislature. I do want to tell a very, very short story that you might think is funny or maybe not. I did not realize the dinner was happening tonight up until just a few days ago, and that's unusual for me because as a member of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, I'm usually very aware. So Bishop, I'm very proud to be here, and to the leadership of the church, thank you so much for having me, and to the Council General, thank you for being here in Santa Clara County again. But my father, who will be 87 years old next month, Dominic Cortese, who represented this area in the state legislature, and prior to that as a county supervisor, called me and he said, you need to go to this dinner and bring a commendation from the Board of Supervisors because I was confirmed at that church. And that's a fact. So once upon a time, as the Italian Americans, just like the Portuguese Americans, started to fill up the east side of San Jose, this became not only the convenient, very convenient parish to belong to, but one that people still have very fond memories about, even when they're 86 or 87 years old. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here this evening.
Esta senhora representa um grande número de voluntários que contribuem com o seu tempo, donativos e talento, que preservam e embelezam a nossa Igreja e a nossa fé católica. Por muitos anos, ela tem trabalhado incansavelmente para o bem da nossa paróquia. Minhas senhoras e meus senhores, Dona Celina Belém.
Good evening, everybody. Nosso Reverendo Bishop de San José, Oscar Cantu, Excelência Reverendíssima Dom João Lavrador, Bispo de Angra e dos Açores, Reverendo Padre António Silveira, pároco da Igreja Nacional Portuguesa das Cinco Chagas, Excelentíssima Senhora Dona Maria João Lopes Cardoso, Cônsul-Geral de Portugal em São Francisco, caros amigos e paroquianos da nossa Igreja, nesta data em que comemoramos o primeiro centenário da nossa linda Igreja e em que prestamos homenagem aos seus fundadores e líderes religiosos pelo trabalho e dedicação durante estes 100 anos de existência, seria injusto não reconhecermos publicamente o contributo de um vasto grupo de pessoas que tornaram possível que hoje aqui estejamos a celebrar um centenário de uma das mais belas igrejas que eu conheço e pela qual tenho grande apreço. Eu gostaria de chamar a toda essa gente, os voluntários da paróquia. Eles e elas são, o fundo, aqueles que tornaram possível materializar as ideias dos párocos através do seu trabalho, donativos e dedicação. Atrever-me-ia mesmo a dizer que, se não fossem eles, o sonho do Monsenhor Ribeiro não teria sido passado disso mesmo. A minha crença religiosa e a importância que esta Igreja representa para os imigrantes portugueses e seus descendentes ao longo dos últimos 100 anos foram algumas das razões pelas quais, há cerca de 25 anos, decidi aceitar o desafio do então pároco, Padre Leonel Noia, para oferecer o meu modesto contributo na manutenção deste importante património, como coordenadora da Sociedade do Altar. Após longos anos de serviço da dedicada e saudosa senhora Angie Silva, é com o único intuito de prestar homenagem àqueles que nem sempre são lembrados e até algumas vezes são motivo de crítica, e agradecer a todos os que depositaram a sua confiança e colaboraram comigo nos últimos 25 anos, que insisti em fazer esta breve intervenção de gratidão para com o vasto número de colaboradores anónimos que se têm dedicado à manutenção e preservação da nossa Igreja. Desde o início da nossa paróquia, os voluntários desempenharam um papel impreensível na realização deste projeto comunitário. Inicialmente os nomes de Joaquim e Manuel Teixeira de Freitas, de José Alemão, mais tarde João Fialho e Franco Betancourt e Ana Fialho Pinheiro. Entre tantos outros, são nomes incontornáveis da história da nossa paróquia. Mas eles não foram os únicos ao longo de 100 anos. Foram centenas, ou talvez de milhares, os que na sombra, sem fanfarrice, deram o seu contributo à nossa Igreja. Foram eles que, nas horas de dificuldade, responderam sempre aos pedidos e apelos, generosamente afirmaram o seu compromisso com esta instituição, salvando muitas vezes os administradores de situações difíceis e embaraçosas. Agradeço em nome pessoal e da paróquia a todos os que confiaram em mim e acreditaram que o que eu fazia era de exclusivo interesse da nossa Igreja. É com grande dose de nervosismo e apreensão que me encontro aqui esta noite da festa da celebração do primeiro centenário da nossa Igreja, porque sei que, devido à falta de tempo, será impossível fazer justiça e, ao mesmo tempo, não esquecer voluntariamente aqueles que merecem o meu mais sincero apreço e reconhecimento. Gostaria de poder agradecer pessoalmente a cada um, mas sabendo dessa impossibilidade, peço que compreendam o meu receio de algum melindre ou esquecimento. Permitam que relembre a memória e preste a minha respeitosa homenagem às incansáveis amigas da Sociedade do Altar, os membros das sociedades da Senhora de Fátima, Senhor Bom Jesus, da Senhora do Carmo, de Lourdes, de Santo António, bem como presidentes das festas anuais, os coros que abrilhantam as nossas liturgias, as organizações comunitárias que sempre têm sido parceiras importantes da nossa Igreja, nomeadamente a IES, fundada para apoiar a construção da Igreja e que sempre disponibilizou as suas dependências para as festas da paróquia, as sucessivas direções da Portuguese Band of São José, a Aliança Georgiense e as suas direções, o empenho de Manuel e Margarida Cabral, as filarmónicas que abrilhantaram as festas, as voluntárias que fazem a massa cevada, que tem sido uma das grandes fontes da receita da paróquia, a disponibilidade e dedicação de Arnaldo Matos e Carlos Silveira e de um grandes benefeitores desta paróquia, o casal Batista e Dolores Vieira. A lista das provas de generosidade estendem-se ainda a todos os que participaram na recuperação dos vitrais, um projeto coordenado por David Vieira, os que contribuíram para as campanhas de pintura e da instalação do novo teto da Igreja, com modelação do passal, etc. Os responsáveis pela jardinagem e asseio do exterior da Igreja, nomeadamente Manuel Cabral, os que ofereceram imagem e pagaram pelo novo sobrado, pelos lustres, que custearam as despesas do restauro do órgão de tubos e a compra do órgão da Igreja, que repararam o mobiliário, e os marceneiros que perseveraram e construíram tanto ao longo dos anos. Relembro a memória de muitos que já não estão conosco e cuja dedicação foi sempre exemplar. Que Deus permeie a sua dedicação com o eterno descanso. A marca indelével da colaboração generosa, do talento, do esforço e da ajuda financeira de toda essa gente simples, mas honesta, orgulhosa da sua cultura e tradições, ficará para sempre gravada nas páginas da memória desta histórica Igreja Nacional Portuguesa das Cinco Chagas. A finalizar, queria também agradecer a confiança e o ambiente de cordialidade que sempre recebi dos diversos párocos da nossa Igreja, nomeadamente o nosso atual pároco, António Silveira. Durante todo este tempo de mais intensa ligação e dedicação à nossa Igreja, não poderia deixar de registrar um profundo agradecimento ao meu marido, Tiberio Belém, e à minha filha Helena e aos meus netos, pelo incondicional apoio e pela tolerância que foi necessária da sua parte nestes longos anos. Obrigado pela compreensão. Por fim, agradeço à Cândido Goulart pelo apoio na preparação deste banquete, à Mariana Flores pela preparação das sobremesas e ao Miguel Ávila, presidente do Comitê do Centenário da nossa Igreja, a oportunidade de partilhar a minha gratidão para com todos vós, neste dia especial na história da nossa comunidade. Agradeço ainda a Deus, que me deu saúde e permitiu a graça de poder colaborar com o meu modesto contributo na mais importante instituição comunitária portuguesa, a Califórnia. Boa noite e bem-ajam.
Thank you, Mrs. Blank. This was a beautiful speech, and for those of you who don't speak Portuguese, she talked about the long history of all the volunteers that she represents here tonight, and really what all the volunteers have done to make the church what it is today. And so it is a perfect moment to recognize the amazing work that Mrs. Blank accomplished, as well as my co-MC, Connie Goulart, and the army of women and men who transformed this gym into this magical space for this celebration of our centennial. Without volunteers like these, our church is nothing but an empty building. So I would like to ask you all, if you participated in putting this event together, to just please stand so you can be recognized as we give you a round of applause.
Um imigrante português que veio na segunda onda da imigração dos anos 1960 a 1970, o qual escolheu a Igreja Nacional Portuguesa das Cinco Chagas para praticar o seu culto. Ele está aqui para partilhar connosco a sua visão sobre o centenário.
Our keynote speaker for the centennial celebration was selected for many reasons, but one of the key ones being his aptitude and passion for our community's history. He had the vision of scanning Monsignor Henrique Ribeiro's diary, which he summarized, and it eventually led to the research that Miguel Ávila used to write The Vestibule to Heaven. He is here with us tonight to share a few words about our history. Please welcome Toby Goulart.
I know that Lucia would wish that it was just a few words, but knowing my traditional habits, I think it will be a little longer than probably just a few words. I'd like to salute Archbishop, the Most Reverend Bishop of San Jose, Oscar Cantu, Excelência Reverendíssima Dom João Evangelista Labrador, Bispo de Angra e das Ilhas dos Açores, como há uns anos se chamava, Reverendo Padre António Silveira, Pastor of the Five Winds Portuguese National Church, Dr. Maria João Lopes Cardoso, Consul General of Portugal in San Francisco, Supervisor David Cortiza, Comendadores Manuel Betancourt, Dr. Décio Oliveira and Batista Vieira, members of the clergy, past associate pastors and pastors of Five Wounds Church, including Monsignor Brown, Bishop Cantu, and our MCs kind of took the sail out of my wind, took the wind out of my sails with their homily and the introduction to this evening's program to your benefit. I shortened my intervention by half a page, trying to mitigate and make up for some of the time that we are so critical out this evening. But I would like to say and start by saying that the Five Wounds is highly regarded as a matter of our national pride and identity. As many fellow citizens found a place to express their religiosity and spirituality in the comfort of their own tongue in following their endeared traditions. No one can underestimate the role of the national churches the role the national churches represented to millions of newly arrived European immigrants to the United States at the turn of the 20th century. In the case of the first wave of Portuguese immigrants, almost exclusively Azoreans and traditionally Catholics, the religious, social, and cultural organizations the church provided and the opportunities it provided were of utmost importance to soften the harsh reality of adapting to a new world, a new language, a new culture, and a new way of life. I am deeply honored to the committee for inviting me to be a part of this memorable evening. I'm also simultaneously humbled and quickly reminded of the many other people in this community that have researched the history of the Five Wounds. Most of their work has been published by Portuguese Heritage Publication, and I would encourage all of you to acquire and read A Vestibule to Heaven by Miguel Ávila and Power of the Spirit by Machado, Moreno, and Rodriguez, two brilliantly illustrated historic treasures of our presence in California. I'm not going to repeat the contents of those two masterpieces, but allow me to invite you to relive or reconstruct the journey of the visionary founder of our parish and of our community on what I would like to call that improbable centennial celebration of the heart and soul of a community. Travel back in time and try to imagine the fabric the founder of Five Wounds was made out of and all the major hurdles he had to overcome to carry out his dream plan. Henrique Augusto Ribeiro was born to a single mother, Rita Luisa, in Cedros in 1866 and ordained a priest in 1889. Raised with a sister Maria Amélia and brother Artur, one would suspect they had a very humble beginning, and if it was not for the help of his padrino, godfather, who is referred to without mention of name on his diary entry on September 4th, 1927, to have passed away 38 years prior. According to research of Maria Cardi, that anniversary was precisely the date the vicar of Cedros, Father Antonio Tomás Ribeiro, died in 1889 and 54 years of age. And coincidentally, the same year, the Monsignor was ordained the priest. For about 20 years, He served parishes in his native island of Fayal and in Flores, where he founded the newspaper O Ocidental, and he was involved in the construction of 3 churches in Fazenda dos Lajes, Fazenda de Santa Cruz, and Ponta de Feijão. During that time, he received the titles of Monsignor, Protonotário Régio, and Protonotário Apostólico ad Instado. He enjoyed an outstanding reputation, and he was widely recognized for both his entrepreneurial church building skills and for his preaching. By the turn of the 20th century, he had been invited to speak at the See of Lisbon and had traveled to France. Not a small feat for a priest in a rural island of Flores. An openly declared supporter of the Portuguese monarch, Monsignor Ribeiro's life would be shaken up with the establishment of the Portuguese Republic in 1910. Anti-clerical and anti-Catholic sentiments and policies of the new political regime may have played a major role on his departure from the Azores, on a self-imposed exile. Although one may think that the changes in the Portuguese political scene had little effect in the everyday life of a distinguished cleric in the island of Flores, Monsignor might have seen some of his privileges and connections erode and some of his influence diminish before the Republican newcomers. The reasons for his departure from Flores at the late age of 46 are not consensual, especially considering that he was recognized, appreciated, and respected by all the population and by his peers. Leaving his dear mother, but aging mother, already in her 70s, her sister and her brother behind to move to California could be an indication that there were other motives for his departure. Upon his arrival in California, it is believed that Monsignor served the communities of Atwater and Buhac prior to establishing himself in San Jose sometime in 1912. However, recent research confirms that Monsignor Ribeiro had visited California in 1905. And we know that because he became member of the UPEC. And in order to become member of the UPEC, you had to be at least a temporary resident of California, according to Mr. Carlos Almeida, an historian and author. So we don't know exactly the first time that he arrived in California or his motivation to come to San Jose. It's very unfortunate that several of his diary books are missing. Of special importance, those related to his arrival and the initial plans of the church building process from 1912 to 1914. It's such an important period of the history of the Portuguese community in San Jose that will forever be lost due to the carelessness of those who did not take the proper care of the Monsignor's life story. It would have been particularly interesting to know, among other things, why he chose East San Jose, out of all places in California, to start his endeavor. We probably will never know. East San Jose was a rural, unincorporated area that extended from Coyote Creek to the foothills. And according to the history of San Jose by Clyde Arbuckle, in 1911, East San Jose had a population of 2,000 inhabitants. And it was annexed in that year of 1911 to the city of San Jose because they didn't want to build roads and assume the costs of building roads in the East San Jose area. A large percentage of the small number of Portuguese who lived in East San Jose, and you might remember or recall that IES is called IES of East San Jose and not IES of San Jose because of the location where the property was and before the annexation to the city of San Jose. But the few Portuguese that lived in East San Jose were already parishioners of St. Patrick's. As a matter of fact, they had established a Holy Ghost Brotherhood to celebrate Pentecost in 1911. So it was difficult for the Monsignor to penetrate this community. One more hurdle. In 1910, according to W.G. Gifford, quoted in the Vestibule to Heaven, there were less than 2,000 Portuguese-born residents in Santa Clara County. So you can judge and see that East San Jose was a very small pocket of Portuguese natives. That number increased, though, from 2,000 to approximately 8,200 by 1930. Naturally, the church had something to do with it due to the impact that the Monsignor promoted very frequently this area and encouraged his parishioners to purchase properties around the church. It shall be noted that only after the construction of 5 rooms did the Portuguese media at the time started referring to the Portuguese in San Jose. Prior to that, from 1884, when the first newspaper was founded in California, until the 1912s, 13, they seldom refer that there are Portuguese in San Jose. The Portuguese Colonia, with all its fraternal societies headquarters, St. Joseph's Church, Maria Auxiliadora, Holy Ghost Church, most community newspapers, the Portuguese Hospital, and the Portuguese American Bank, the cultural and social activities were almost exclusively centered in the San Francisco, Oakland, San Leandro, Hayward, Centerville, and Sacramento areas. While still recovering from the devastating effects of the Great San Francisco earthquake of 1906, the planning for the 1914 Panama Pacific World Expo in San Francisco drew the attention of the more affluent Portuguese American community of Oakland, San Francisco, and Marin County, who rallied behind this event and invested a great deal of resources to assure the success of the Portuguese participation. A very influential delegation, community delegation, traveled to Portugal to propose a strong participation in the expo. And the traditional Manuelan-style pavilion was commissioned. Like the Portuguese newspapers, the local newspapers, the Den, San Jose News, and the Evening News seldom featured any reference to the Portuguese community prior to that period, unless it was a crime-related or a personal or family disaster. The Portuguese community in the South Bay lived modestly from small farming and dairy. And although they had maintained and attained a fairly good standard of living, they were not considered a rich community, with notable businessmen such as Manuel Freitas in Marin County, the founder of the Bank of San Rafael, Joaquim Antonio Silveira, owner of American Creamery in Oakland, the notable Francisco Inácio de Lemos, and the wealthy João Inácio de Souza from Bakersfield, who For some strange reason or antagonism with Monsignor Ribeiro, despite his generous donations to many philanthropic causes, never opened up his wallet to help with the construction of 5 wounds, despite the insistence and persistence of the Monsignor. He was often frustrated with this community, expecting everyone to dedicate so much attention to his project as he did. But the community was slow in contributing. Monsignor's English skills were another hurdle. His very limited knowledge of English was noted in several places in his diary. And in 1924, when he points out how inconvenient and frustrating having to go to school at 50-some years of age, he calls it a masada. Monsignor had to hire and interact with an architect and engage with the San Francisco Archdiocese to establish the parish and discuss matters related to the construction of the church. The language barrier frustrated them and made them resort to Mr. Freida's assistance in these meetings with the Archbishop and others to resolve important matters. Keep in mind that Five Wounds Church was planned and built during World War I. In addition, the impact of as it was mentioned just a little while ago, the impact of the devastating 1918 Great Flu epidemic that killed thousands in America was very detrimental. Collections were down. Volunteer help was harder to find, and circumstances were not the ideal for someone wanting to tackle a project of the magnitude of our church. Considering all of the above, circumstances and conditions, common sense pointed towards the construction of a small mission-style church to serve the needs of this small and slow-growing community. Only a visionary of Monsignor's caliber would even dream of such a massive, beautiful church, always guided by his unwavering belief, I will build and they will come. And he was right, they did. Monsignor Ribeiro was not only the mastermind of the construction of the last of the 4 beautiful churches, of his beautiful churches, that he so appropriately called a vestibule to heaven, but he was also the master and the pioneer organizer of this very scattered Portuguese community in San Jose and incorporated areas of the South Bay. Considering the time, circumstances, and the hurdles that he had to overcome, the magnitude of his accomplishments are such that it should be considered just shy of a miracle, a true success story against all odds. We could literally say that he pulled a rabbit out of his 3-winged hat, which he often wore. Monsignor Ribeiro was a man of very strong convictions, organized, a man of deep faith, intelligence, with pride and great artistic talent, a great negotiator, a real mover and shaker, a true hero for this community. After the purchase of the land and the approval from the Archdiocese of San Francisco, the cornerstone was laid on October 1st, 1916. And less than 3 years later, the bells rang, the people cried of joy on the happiest and most important day of the community, as the Monsignor noted in his diary. Monsignor Ribeiro worked tirelessly to make sure that he carried out his mission with the with a steady determination despite his many frustrations and disappointments. He traveled in a very precarious vehicle to all parts of the state to preach and raise funds for the construction of his marvel architectural piece. The old car the community had gifted them broke down often and was driven by his nephew Enrique, who was not particularly known for his driving skills and got involved in so many wrecks. One such as in 1924 when he ran into a truckload of eggs. Promptly, Monsignor denied his culpability. Monsignor Ribeiro and most of his successors understood the mutual importance of the dichotomy community in parish. Especially after the establishment of the school, a true community developed and flourished into what would be later called Little Portugal, with 5 wounds as its heart. It's unfortunate that our community and even the Portuguese government has not realized the magnitude of Monsignor Ribeiro's work and decided to recognize him as one of the most distinguished Portuguese immigrants in California. Moved by a giant ego and also a determined mind, demanding of others and also of himself, a man of unique courage, tenacity, talent, and dedication, Monsignor Ribeiro was a person of superior artistic and aesthetic taste. Look at the 5 Wounds Church. It's indeed a marvel and unquestionably the most beautiful landmark of the Portuguese presence in California. 100 years after the official inaugural of 5 Wounds Church community, demographics, the energy, the mindset, and the human resources have changed considerably. They are quite different from the ones that inspired the establishment of the parish and the community. In 1924, the Monsignor already realized and registered in his diary that the national churches were simply tolerated. And today, while we still pride ourselves so much in calling it our national church, reality tells us that many others of different cultures and backgrounds also share it. Our church's architecture is a beacon of faith in a now global world. We must keep reminding ourselves that as the world has drastically evolved over the last 100 years, both our parish and our community are at a crossroads, where repetition of the traditional ceremonies and rites may just not be sufficient to keep the flame alive. We're all called to carry the torch of our faith, the values, traditions this temple has represented by generations, by generating a new synergy around this parish community. That is the challenge that is presented to us today. And it's also defined by our beloved Pope Francis, who conveys so clearly the direction the church needs to take to impact the modern world in the following statement. Instead of being just a church that welcomes and receives by keeping its doors open, let's us try also to be a church that finds new roads, that is able to step outside itself and go to those who do not attend Mass, to those who have quit, or those who are indifferent. In our case, I would even add to those who may not be in our parish envelope system. This is our challenge as Catholics and as heirs of this beautiful, majestic temple we all call Portuguese National Church. It's our responsibility and duty to plan and to play an active role together with the leadership of Father Silveira in a climate of full transparency and trust to discover and redefine the direction for the future of this parish. Originally established to serve and respond to the needs of the local Portuguese community, but that is no longer the case, and it has to adjust its course to a more inclusive path, open to other ethnic groups, cultures, and interests. Two final words of gratitude. First, to the family of Monsignor Rivero, present here tonight. They never left, and they never stopped being connected and supporting this church and this parish, even long after the founder's death. Secondly, a gratitude to Father Antonio Silveira and the chair of that committee, Miguel Avila, and the coordinator of this event, Celina Blanc. Our total dedication to this parish is more than obvious and tremendously appreciated. Your presence here today to commemorate 100 years of the Five Wounds Church is an unequivocal indication of your interest in this church's past, but more so in its presence and future. Your presence here today is a vote of confidence in the future, a clear statement that Five Wounds, our beacon of faith, investable to heaven, has not lost its purposes, its place in our hearts and in our lives. Congratulations to the Five Wounds. May the new 100 years be as auspicious as the last century.
Celebrando 100 anos da fundação e construção da nossa Igreja é um marco importante para a história da nossa comunidade. Foi Miguel Ávila que geriu o grupo de voluntários que coordenaram os eventos centenários da paróquia e da Igreja. O Miguel também foi o autor do livro The Vestibule to Heaven.
We'd like to recognize Miguel Avila and all volunteers who contributed in any way to our centennial celebrations over the last 5 years. 5 years ago, a book was published and many events held to celebrate the founding of the parish. And this year, Miguel and a mighty team spent countless hours planning and coordinating religious and social events, including those highlighting the talent of our local community and even talent from Portugal to commemorate our centennial. We'd like to recognize the Centennial Committee and its volunteers. Please stand for a round of applause. And as they say, last but certainly not least, it is time to hear from our pastor, Father Antonio Silveira. Father Antonio has a very special place in our parish. He also was part of the second wave of Portuguese immigrants, attended this church with his wife and children, and through an unexpected turn of events, we have been blessed with his ordination to the priesthood, as he often says, from parishioner to pastor.
E agora apresento-vos o Reverendo Padre António Silveira, pároco da nossa Igreja, que vos vai dirigir algumas palavras.
I promise I will be very, very brief. The message I wrote and that you can find in the program is what I intended to deliver Hic Nunc on this special evening for the life of our church and my ministry as pastor. Please read it when you have a chance, perhaps in the silence of your room. I would probably get emotional if I read it again like I did when I wrote it. And besides, time is running out, and I don't want you to wait any longer for the Father concert. I will, however, share a wonderful live picture that I saw this morning at 5:30 this morning from my bedroom window. When I was asked as I got up, what am I going to talk today, if they asked me to, I saw an older man standing at the bus stop right across from my bedroom window with his hands raised like this, united facing the church, and perhaps, obviously, making his morning prayer. And believe me, that was my best impression that I could get in the morning of the day the church I serve reaches 100 years. Basically, I thank God for the gift of His Son. I thank my parents for the gift of life, my deceased wife Margie for her yes, Father Mancuso for reaching out to me, Bishop Patrick McGrath for his trust in me, my children, and 7 grandchildren, all of them here, and all of them representing, each of them representing the 7 sacraments that I have received in my life. I also thank all parishioners, the camellias, the families, friends, volunteers, and benefactors for their support, all choir groups who joined efforts and talents to sing at the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday Masses, those who postponed their vacation to be here with us. And someone commented earlier, not all your family members are here. And I said yes. And at that moment I remembered what Jesus answered when they told him, your mother and your family, your brothers are out there looking for you. And he answered, my mother and my brothers are those who listen to my word and put it into practice. Well, I will end with this. My family are those who are here, joyfully celebrating with me the first centennial of our church. Thank you.
And now we're going to wrap up. Just a few last comments. The true joy we celebrate today as a centennial church shouldn't stem from the pride of how great our community has been, but from the humility of knowing and accepting that despite our flaws, weaknesses, and failings as a people, Christ has strengthened us in Him, and in Him we have accomplished great things.
Cristo temos o privilégio de encontrar voluntários com vontade e amor de preservar e servir. Ele acendeu a chama do Espírito Santo nos corações daqueles que, possivelmente sem mérito, trouxeram glória e honra ao seu nome. Isto é a felicidade de uma comunidade católica cristã, a qual acolhe todos sem exceção, sendo este o espírito português de hospitalidade ao serviço da tradição cristã.
Shakespeare once wrote, "What's in a name?" We might ask ourselves, what is in a church? Does it have the same meaning, the same dimension today as 100 years ago? Perhaps some say no. Our modern world does not need churches like the Five Wounds with all our technology and scientific advancements. But perhaps we should say yes. We need Five Wounds today more than ever. We may also think that our challenges are far greater than the ones faced on July 13, 1919. But in fact, 100 years ago, although the celebration and the accomplishment was great, the parishioners of that time were saddled with a few $1 million of debt. And the winds of fascism, communism, and anti-clericalism, soon to be followed by a Second World War, were already blowing. We must assume the same courage, faith, and perseverance of the last 100 years as we move forward into the next 100 years. Much still needs to be done. Hearts to be converted, families to be helped. Inspired by our history, let's join hands, united in faith and love for one another, to persevere and renew our church for the next century to come.
Apesar do progresso e inovação do último século, é evidente que a nossa espiritualidade e a nossa fé em Deus precisa mais atenção do que nunca. O nosso mundo espiritual necessita uma casa onde possamos comungar com Cristo e estabelecer a nossa santidade. Continuamos a viver as palavras do Monsenhor Ribeiro: unidos, trabalhemos por Deus e pela pátria.
We would like to thank you all for joining our celebration tonight. While our program and dinner is complete, our entertainment is just about to begin. Before we take a brief intermission, we'd like to also thank our partners, the Portuguese Tribune, KSQQ, the Azores Islands Airlines, the Diaspora Group, for their support.
Muito obrigada pela vossa presença nesta celebração. O nosso programa está prestes a terminar, mas antes de mais queremos agradecer aos nossos colaboradores, a Tribuna Portuguesa, a KSQQ e os seus proprietários, a Azores Airlines e Zé de Carvalho, e a Escola a Escola Jesuíta de Cristo Rei por todo o apoio dispensado. Em seguida vamos ter um breve intervalo e depois voltamos para vos apresentar o espetáculo que se segue.
And one last centennial fact. For almost 100 years, our church has also been the home to a hive of bees in our towers, and these bees have been almost as busy as the Centennial Committee. The bees were recently relocated, and their holy honey was harvested. We have 60 jars of this holy honey on sale to benefit the church. All interested should see the front, where there are also book sales for the vestibule to heaven.
Um último apontamento sobre o centenário. Há quase 100 anos que a nossa igreja tem servido de abrigo para colmeias de abelhas nas torres da mesma. Estas abelhas foram recentemente realojadas e o mel santo foi colhido. Nós temos 60 frascos deste mel santo à venda. Os interessados podem contactar a Bela, da Posse, toda a gente a conhece. Muito obrigada e vamos fazer um intervalo de 15 minutos. E voltamos para o espetáculo. Boa noite.
15-minute break and we will return for our show. Thank you.